So, welcome to the next episode of The Last One Standing. And tonight, we've got Dave Scott, who's just back from. Now, I always say Twatt. Is it pronounced Twatt?
I think there's various different Orcadian ways of pronouncing it. I think the general British way is just to say twat,
Twatt.
being bold. But I
Twatt
think,
Backyard Ultra. And that was it 2 weekends ago now, Dave?
oh yeah, a week and a half ago. Yeah, not long.
Perfect.
Oh no, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah,
2 weeks ago now. So, my first question is, how was it?
it was really, really good and far more so than I expected. And I suppose it was one of these things going into it. I didn't really know what to expect because I hadn't done anything like that before. I've done long races, I've done 24-hour races, but I haven't done anything of this nature. So it was really an unknown, but an unknown in an exciting way. It had a really good feel to it. Now, I had a bad year last year. I was having hip issues. As you know, I couldn't run any kind of long distance, and I haven't run any long distance beyond about 20, 25K without my hip starting to hurt. So that was me going into it thinking, I just don't know what I'm going to be capable of here. I didn't go into it thinking I've got 50 miles in my legs, I've got 70 miles in my legs. I thought I have no idea what I'm capable of here. And so the only way I could look at it was just take it one lap at a time. So I think that was a really good way to go into it from the outset because it was just going to be about having a good time and seeing how it went.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because somebody said to me the other day is that maybe you're just preparing too much for this. And maybe you're taking a bit of the fun out of it, and it sounds like you just went in there and just had an absolute blast and gave no expectations and just had an amazing 25 laps. Was it in the end?
Yeah, I got out on the 26th lap and stopped at the 20th lap. Yeah, so it was, again, far more than I anticipated, but that's just the way the event turned out. And there were probably a good few reasons for that. I mean, a part of that was the lack of any expectations. So you knew you were just going into it to see how you went. But also, I know I can run long distances and I have done in the past. So it wasn't out of the question that I could still be in the running at the sharp end of it
Yeah.
if everything went to plan. And everything kind of just did go to plan for, I suppose, a number of reasons. But a lot of that was the general preparation, making sure things don't go wrong, and then making sure you just enjoy it. And it's all a big psychological game as well. You're trying to convince yourself that you can keep going, and you're even more so trying to persuade everybody else that you can keep going at their expense. Because just get to that point where you're up against these other people, you'll only have a chance if they pull out. So, and you could see other people doing it as well. You could see people with that mindset, not in a
malicious way or anything like that.
malicious way, really just being happy. The people who were the happiest were the people that were running the best. Now, whether they were suffering on the inside, who knows? But you can convince yourself if you persuade yourself that you're happy, then you can actually feel happy. But you are trying to persuade other people that you're strong because you're only going to get somewhere if they pull out, and if they think they're not as strong as you. So you really are trying to just persuade yourself that you're okay. You're totally okay. And then when things start going a little bit not okay, you hide it. You don't come and launch yourself down and say, oh, I'm absolutely broken, because everybody else, they'll see that. People are watching back in the camp. They're seeing, not in a malicious way. This was such a friendly event. And there's a few tell you about it, the people that were there, the mix of people, the expectations of different people. But for those who you knew were going to go further, people are watching each other. You get a chance in an event like this to see all the different people coming back, how much time they're giving themselves, whether they're finishing in 44 minutes, whether they're finishing in 48 minutes, 52 minutes, whether they're just creeping in under the wire and turning straight out again. You see how people are, and you see what energy levels they have, what their determination is, and whether they've had a little sit down and a snooze, whether they've eaten, whether they're up and at the start line ready to go, all smiles, happy. So you're getting that vibe off people, and because people are all trying to put their best side across, it does also make for a really friendly
Yeah.
event. You know, people want to talk to you. Maybe that's psyching you out, but maybe that is just, you know, it's actually a reason to be friendly. If you're the one that puts your headphones on, and there were a couple of guys there that put on great big ear defender headphones and did a few laps in them, and I just thought, you know, you're just isolating yourself from the world, and you need the world around you to be persuading you to go in. I thought as soon as you saw them put their music on, they were doomed. And you could just tell one guy lasted a few laps with that and then he was out. And he'd come with the intention of, again, doing very well. He had a history of at least 30 laps in the past. So, you know, and he was out after 16 or 17. So it's watching people, watching other people's reactions, how to persuade people. I mean, when it came down to the last three of us, and I was going out and I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure if I've got this anymore. I knew I would have had one lap in me, but that's never enough. You have to have two laps because you have to have that lap where the other people hope that somebody drops out and then put in another lap. So at some point you get to the decision to think, okay, well, that's it. I'm not done. I mean, you've heard people before on your, you know, listening to Dave Moore, and he's telling you, you know, you run until you're broken. Dave Andrews saying you run until you're absolutely, you can't put a step forward. And if you don't do that, then you haven't tried hard enough. I didn't quite have that attitude because I could have done another lap, but I didn't want to do two more laps. So that's why, I suppose that's why people set off on the final lap and often don't finish it. So you might set off just to see if anybody else
drops out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I ran around the field. It was about 800 meters around the field. So I did that, knowing in my head, if they don't drop out, then I'm out by the end of the field. And, you know, that's how it was. They went off up the hill and I said to them, cheerio, guys, good luck. And that was my...
Straight away, there's about 5 things I've written down from just that opening question there that I want to kind of go a wee bit further. You mentioned that your general prep went well. What was your general preparation for the day? Because I remember seeing the video of you attaching the caddy onto the back of your bike and having all your stuff in the back of the bike. And then what was your preparation like for the event?
Yeah, well, I got up to Orkney on the Thursday night. So I had Thursday night at a friend's house in Kirkwall, and then on the Friday I just had a day pottering about. I got a wee ferry across to one of the islands, went out for a paddleboard, took my bike across, so I did a few miles on the bike. And then the Friday evening, I cycled up to the field where it was taking place, pulling my little trailer. And so that 50 miles on my bike. And it was just quite nice to feel I've got the legs ticked over, but not done any running on them. Yeah. And then on the day of the event, it's just that usual kind of waiting around when you've got a midday start. You're just, in a way, trying to keep your off your feet for as much you can, but you're chatting to people, you're sort of getting the photos taken, registering, getting kind of what you need set up. So, I mean, from my point of view, you were there for all weathers, so you just don't know what it's going to throw at you. Yeah. If it be wet, do you want to be hanging around in a wet t-shirt for 15 minutes each lap? I took 20 t-shirts with me thinking, you know, I might be changing t-shirt every lap and changing my buff on my head every lap, because a standard. Now, if it was raining and you were just running consistently, you would just run through that in the same gear. But the idea of standing around in a wind for 15 minutes each lap didn't appeal. So I was kind of ready for lots of changes of clothes if I needed to. And I suppose as it happened, we didn't get any rain at all. It was absolutely stunning. You know,
yeah, it looked amazing. Looked amazing weather. Did the weather have an effect on you as well, like the heat?
I would say, no, come on, this is Orkney when you talk about the heat.
We were sitting outside today. I was thinking, gosh, I don't know about this heat. What I can do in this heat.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have it as hot as that. It was certainly a few degrees cooler, and we had a really strong wind as well. Okay. You know, in the way that it always is in Orkney. But the wind, I felt would work to your favour. So it was at your back when you were running up the sharpest bit of the hill. You then had a big long run along a ridge, a road into the wind. And then you turned around and you had a tailwind running back. So although the wind was strong, you would just use it to your advantage. And I felt, you know, find the positives in it. Don't see it as a negative. See it as something else. And so a lot of the Arcadians were saying, "Oh, the wind is awful. It's terrible." And I was thinking to myself, "This wind is really good. It's blowing me up the hill. It's cooling me down as I run down the hill." I was thinking, "This is fine. I'm not complaining at it at all." But weather-wise, I think we got it really lucky because it was dry throughout, and it would be a very different story if it was wet. I mean, if it was a rainy event and you were coming in with even 10 minutes to spare each lap, you've got to think seriously about whether you want to be in your wet clothes for that time or whether you have a significant number of changes of clothes. If you have a dry robe that you put on for that time, just to completely warm you up and keep you from getting colder, because that will have a big impact in a wet weather event. But as it was, I just, we had great weather. I did change my t-shirt and my buff every 5 laps. I said to myself, that's a nice little
treat to
process.
yourself.
It was a treat. It was a great excuse to get out all the different colours of Brewdog t-shirts that I had. So yeah, that was how I wanted to do it. You would sort of count down and think, okay, 3 more laps and I'll get a change of clothes. Yeah. 2 more laps, I'll get a change of clothes.
That low-level goal, isn't it? Like a smaller goal to kind of head towards rather than the big all-night goal or the next day goal. It's like in 3 laps I get to change a t-shirt, and it's something that's small, manageable, and realistic to achieve, and it's keeping them small goals in place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you mentioned there was about like spending 10 to 15 minutes in a wet t-shirt, but like, had you planned roughly how long each lap was going to take you, or did you have a tactic to have a quick lap to spend more time eating food, or did you have a slower lap so you spent less time standing, or did you kind of just go with the flow and see what happened?
Yeah, well, in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, the occasional lap I'll do as a fast lap, and I'll have 20 minutes, and I'll maybe even get to close my eyes or whatever. But it didn't work like that at all on the day. Every lap was pretty much consistent. Some were a little bit slower, depending on whether I buddied up with people and just was enjoying the chat with them, and or a bit faster if I was doing that with someone who was running a bit quicker. But virtually every lap I did was around about 48 to 49 minutes. And that just seemed to be my natural running pace, but taking it easy, not brutalizing myself running too quickly, not brutalizing myself running unnecessary hills. Although there was one hill which I did enjoy running up each time and passed a lot of people on. And I just felt in my head that was a nice thing to be able to prove to myself. You're still able to run up this gentle incline, as it were, that most other people were walking. But I found the pace, it was more important to keep a steady, what you might consider a gentle pace, than trying to push out a faster pace. There were people there that definitely had tactics. The winner overall ran quicker than everybody on every lap. He was running generally a bit faster, but there were other people who had done last man standing events before who were very much of the mindset that 52 minutes, no quicker than that. And you would see them walking on bits that you thought were completely unnecessary to walk on, but they just wanted to ease off a little bit. I just felt it was best to find the natural pace that you want to go without pushing it. Don't try and find yourself tired at the end. Don't beat yourself up over walking any hills or taking any walking breaks, because you don't want to rush. You don't want to be back too soon, or else you've got too long. And I found 10 to 12 minutes was absolutely fine to come back and eat, the occasional toilet trip, and change of clothes, catch up with a couple of people, and then back on the start line. So I didn't really want any more than that. So I didn't ever feel for a quick lap.
What issue did the night bring?
The first issue was a beautiful sunset. So you felt that it was, you were blessed to still be running and to see that. I knew that when I set off on the 10 o'clock lap, that the sun was going to set during that time. And so I hadn't been carrying my phone with me, but for that lap, I took my phone up and got all the pictures and the FaceTime of the sun setting, and it was stunning. So you just thought, wow, that was amazing. But it never really got dark. So Glenmore 24, which I've done in September, where it does get dark around about 9 o'clock, and then you're in the dark for the next few hours, and you feel that you've gone through this, night time. But it never got dark with us. It was always light enough. I had a head torch with me, and I would put it on for about a 200-meter section through some rutted grass bit that we had to run on. But other than that, the head torch was switched off again, and we just run by the night. So I guess Blair Athol's not going to be quite the same. You will get darkness in the night there, but it's not going to be too bad because you're still only a month from midsummer. So I think from my point of view, because it never really got dark, I never got tired in the same way as when I've done the Glenmore 24. Both times I felt the need for a sleep in the middle of the night. I just felt I had to put my head down for 10 minutes and get up and get going again. And, at Glenmore, that worked out fine. You didn't feel you lost anything because you came out guys like a car with new tires. But I didn't feel it at all at Orkney. And I think that was partly because you're not overly pushing each lap and you're getting little rests and you're not feeling that every minute is precious. So I didn't have that fatigue, that tiredness that I've had before. And I think that's partly because it never got dark, and partly because you aren't pushing it in the same way on an event like this. You just have to get around your 4 miles each lap.
Yeah, no, excellent. The other thing I had that came up there was you mentioned that some people definitely had tactics. It's quite interesting. One of the things you also mentioned at the start was that it was quite nice to look around and see who was having the tactics and see who's hatching the plans and stuff like that. So it's quite an interesting when you make it a game. It does excite me more about the tactical side of things as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's not about winning because it's very hard to go into something like this. And at Blair Athol, you've got 160 people taking part. To think that you're going to win takes a lot of it's going to be a special person that wins that, and who knows who that person might be. I don't think there'll be any obvious front runners there because of the nature of the event and how it can go. But you are looking around and you're thinking, all the different people. What are their game plans? What are their tactics? Are you stronger than them? And every person that drops out, you sort of feel a little bit of sympathy for. You're thinking, well done, but you're also thinking, right, down to 10, down to 6, down to 3. And that's a great feeling in its own right because you're thinking, oh, I'm doing okay here. As I said, I didn't expect to go in with any high hopes of doing well. So I was absolutely delighted to be down to the last 3. And I felt that was a real, achievement. And I was pleased.
Massive achievement.
And you can always look back in retrospect and think, did I have another lap in me? Did I have another 2 laps in me? If I'd known that the winner would have won it on 28 hours, could I have actually done 29 hours? But of course, it doesn't work like that because if I was still 29 hours, we could both still be 40. And it's just that's the nature of it. So you can't ever look back with regrets and think you could have done more. That's the decision you take. It is a hard decision to pull out. But
what makes you take that decision, Dave?
There were a couple of things, I suppose. There's firstly, and I know you've heard it from Dave Andrews before. The idea of 24 hours being, an achievement. 24 hours benchmark that you set yourself, and you think, "Wow, I've done that." But now what? If you've done 24 hours, oh right, what next? Yeah. I've run 100 miles. I've ticked that box. We got a special 100-mile medal awarded when we hit that 24 hours. So the mentality of thinking you can do 24 hours, then do the wheels come off a little bit? I wouldn't think so because I didn't have that hope in the first place. But 24 hours is always going to be a benchmark. It's always going to be a line that you cross, and then you think, okay, I'm on to the next day now. Partly because things start to niggle as well. So my calf was starting to hurt, not to the point that I was limping, although, as I said before, you don't want to give too much away. So if it is sore, you don't go making it out like you're in agony. You don't go seeking sympathy unless that, again, is part of your game plan and you can actually pull through it. So I just had to keep my little sore calf to myself, and it eased off at some points, and then it would come back again. And I thought, this could get a little bit worse. This was one of the things that was starting to be a reason to stop going, because again,
towards that thought process.
Yeah, you just kind of edge towards that. Most laps, I would go out and I would think to myself, I have no reason to stop. And that was it. So I'm on to the next lap. I know that I will finish this lap and start the next lap. I have no reason to stop. And that's the other thing you can
Quite a
just tell you.
nice mantra as well. There's no reason to stop, because I think that the brain's probably hardwired to look for reasons. If you start looking for things, you're going to find something. So as long as you can clarify, there is no reason to stop.
Yeah, so many laps I went through, because I went thinking, if I do 8 laps, I'll be happy. So to tell myself each lap after that, there is no reason to stop. There is no reason to stop. And we got to a point where we started off with quite a big climb. So the first 2K, you would probably climb about 300 meters in that time.
Wow.
Then you ran along on the flat for about another 2K, and then downhill again for the finish. So
300 meters is a lot in that.
Yeah, so it was a reasonable amount of climbing. But I always felt when I got to the top of that climb after 2K, I thought, right, that's it. This lap's in the back, and I will start the next lap. So again, for most of the lap, that's 45 minutes till the next start time. You're thinking to yourself, I'm good for the next one.
Yeah, that's quite nice as well. I think the Blair Athol is like a 2K flat, then it's like 2K of the climb, and it's like 2K down basically. So I think the same thought process will come in after that 4K point when you've reached the top of the hill. Okay, that's that lap in the bag. Let's start thinking about the next one itself. No, it's great.
Yeah.
The route itself, you mentioned there's a ridge that was quite exposed. What was the scenery like?
It was good because from up on that top, it was a road that just ran along, and you could look down over the whole of the north of the Orkneys. So that's where you saw the sunset off in the distance. That's where you saw the little headlands and the lighthouses, and Bursey, which is a little village. And it was stunning. It was beautiful. There was a memorial to Lord Kitchener. So some of the Orcadians were telling me about this in some of the earlier laps. But then I'm telling the story to other people of memorial and how Kitchener sank during the war, and that's where his boat was torpedoed. And so you just felt that, here's a little bit of history that you're passing on. It was nice having the other Orcadians there. There were, from an Orcadian point of view, I think this is their first proper ultra that they've had on the island. So it did attract quite a lot of local people, and it was accessible as well because, you could come out and run, half marathon distance and, tick the box of taking part. So really nice to see lots of Orcadians there and speak to them. They were proud to be running in their home territory. They had their Orkney Athletics Club tops on. So
it sounds like a great experience.
Yeah. Well, especially going away to an island for it. It felt like it wasn't just like pack up on Friday night, drive to somewhere in Scotland, okay, rush. You were dictated to by ferry times, and it just felt like a little breakaway. I really hope it happens again next year because it was a good event to be part of. It was a little adventure to a distant place, but it was fun, and the people there were really nice. One of the organisers has unfortunately since left Orkney. That was her coming to the end of her time there. So Erica Clarkson, who organises it along with Sarah Scarth, has moved to Malta. I don't know if it was as a result. Too many dodgy summers up there, but she's now away. So I hope that Sarah has the confidence and the support to put it on again next year.
I actually bumped into Sarah during the Moray 50 miler. And we ran a few miles together, and we separated for a few miles, and then it was just at the end she was hunting down a time, and it was great to see her. And it was the first time I met her, and we've kept in brief contact since. And it's definitely if this next one goes well, then there might be 2 of us hunting down the Twatt backyard ultra that goes ahead next year.
Very good. Yeah. No, I couldn't recommend it enough because, like I say, it doesn't matter whether you feel that you're a 100-mile runner, a 50-mile runner, a 25-mile runner. You can go and take part and enjoy it for what it is. One of the other things as well, so it was an out and back course, which is different to the course that you're running. But when we ran along the top road, and the point that you turned around, there was a caravan of suppose, support team up there that had been laid on by the organisers to cheer. It was like a little cheer squad, but they kept going for 22 out of the 24 hours. They were outside, they were passing out drinks, they were drinking plenty themselves, they had a different song on every time you came up, they danced. Of course, we saw them and they were always dancing, but of course that was maybe just 5 minutes every hour, and then it was all quite...
back to sleep.
But it have a little cheer squad like that. It gave you something to look forward to, and then you turn around and you're way back again and you hear them cheering everybody else on.
How did you feel, Dave?
I always think you've got to keep yourself fueled. It's one of the most important things, because if you run out of fuel, whether you're doing anything more than a half marathon, you're going to need to get something on board. So always think you've got to make sure whatever it is you're taking on, your body can cope with it. And I think it's one of these real skills as an ultra runner to be able to eat and run. You know, you hear of people that are like, oh, I couldn't possibly eat after a meal, but that's what you've got to do when you're doing long distance running, because you've got to get some fuel inside you, and you don't really want to live off a gel every lap. You can avoid that. So in my head, I kind of broke it down to make sure I had plenty of drinks. So, you know, whether that's water, whether that's energy drinks, I would always have an active root and an electrolyte drink sitting there ready for me. If people ask me, so there's kind of support teams around, because I was unsupported, but like the crew of the organisers would be saying, you know, can we get you anything? And I would often have a cup of tea, really love a cup of tea. So that was great. And I'd be like, chuck loads of milk in it. It has to be tea that I can just wolf down, neck it. But the other thing as well about trying to get some food in you is trying to, over that distance and time, picture meal times. So when around about lunchtime, have something that you would kind of have for lunch, whether that's a sandwich or something as a sort of meal, and then mid-afternoon have something like a snack that you might have mid-afternoon. And then when it comes to the sort of evening, what would you maybe have for dinner? So they brought out burgers, and I thought, oh, actually half a burger would go down quite well. That was provided by the organisers. But if you haven't got that, then just think, well, what would you actually have as something a bit more substantial at a meal time? And the same as you go through the night, what might you have late at night as a snack? What might you have to tell you it's breakfast time? Would you have some porridge or something at breakfast time? Just to kind of keep you in some sort of body clock and keep you in some sort of mind of how the day is going, rather than just every lap a bag of crisps, or every lap a gel, or every lap whatever it is people like to have, 3 potatoes. Because you'll get fed up of that. So actually trying to factor in sort of variety based around normal meal times, I thought was quite a helpful way of getting your nutrition in you and reminding yourself to eat. You do sometimes have to think, okay, right, I've got to get something down me because I don't want to take anything out on the course with me. Other people did. You would see people with backpacks on and they would have drinks to sip on as they went. I was quite happy thinking, as long as I get plenty in me during my stop, then I can get out and run. But of course, you have to then be able to go and run with half a litre of tea or juice or whatever in you each lap. And if you're not used to running with a belly full, then you know that. So when it comes down to training for things like this, it's not necessarily the miles in your legs, it's the other stuff that you do. It's about, you know, whether you can have a bowl of pasta and go out for a run, you know, that would be good training. Whether you can glug a pint of tea and go out for a run, you know, what does that do to your stomach? Can you digest it?
It's quite interesting because I sat with Meryl last night, Meryl Cooper, who 2 seconds. Meryl Cooper last night, who does nutritional advice, and she's an ultra herself, and it was very much about the nutritional side of things and how you can kind of break it down to units and how much units you're going to take per such and such, and it's quite interesting. But it's the running with it in your stomach. That's the biggest thing. You know, how can you get by with actually running on a full stomach, or running on a stomach that's got a litre of tea in it that juggles about? And you've got to practice that. And I have, to a certain degree, been practicing that, but the speed of running is so much different that there's a lot more jiggling because you're going a lot slower. So yeah, that fluid fairly moves about.
Yeah. So it's definitely something to think about, and because you don't want to get to the point where you're then limiting your fluid intake, when in fact you need to maintain that fluid intake, and you only get one opportunity when you're back at camp to get it. You start sort of depleting, then you find yourself dehydrated, and can find yourself in a bit of difficulty if it's a hot day. So,
no, absolutely. A couple of questions I had written down here. What was your main learnings? What was your main learnings? Not just necessarily for that type of event, but more about yourself as well. And like a lot of people say with these types of events, you never come out the same person you go in. So what did you learn from the event?
Okay, well, I've learned a tactic. I don't know if I want to share though my top tip for
Don't
tactics.
share. There's people listening.
So my number one tip was find someone that's running at the same pace and enjoy it with them. Find a buddy. First, it'll keep you entertained, and secondly, it makes you look strong to everybody else. If you're chatting away, having a good time, you're the one that's looking like you're enjoying it compared to other people who are spending a lot of time in their own thoughts. So I'm not saying force yourself on somebody, but if you happen to get somebody who's running the same sort of pace as you, then stick with them and enjoy it with them, because it'll do you both. The sum of the parts is greater than individuals. So I was really lucky. I started chatting to a girl called Ella, and we were running roughly the same sort of pace, but she always set off a bit quicker. So she would go off up the hill, and then because I was then running up the hill, I would catch her generally about the same point at 2 kilometers in, just about every lap. And then we would run the rest together. And that just seemed to work out perfectly, that we got a bit of time apart. We'd come back to camp, we'd go our separate ways, we'd be at the start line, she'd go off quicker, and then I'd catch up with her. But then we'd have about 4.5K running together every lap. And it was the important 4.5K as well. It was the time where other people saw you. It was the time when you got a good catch up. But we both felt strong because we were just chatting away and really enjoying each other's company. But we looked strong to everybody else as well. And when both of us decided to call it a day, people were really surprised because it made us look like a little powerful team. And I think
you both finished at the same time, Dave?
Well, we did, yes. So she got 24 hours, and there was one other lady still participating, and the other girl pulled out after the 24th lap.
She did 25th too.
So Ella came out to do her 25th lap to take the ladies' title, although, of course, it's last one standing. It's not necessarily last lady standing. But, she was really, that was, full credit to her. So she only, in her head, had to run that 25th lap till she was done. So she pulled out after that 25th lap. And I set off on my 26th lap thinking, I'm also pretty done. Now, whether that was because she'd stopped, did that give me a reason to stop? I don't know. You could probably factor that in. Now I was running on my own. Did I have the same motivation? But no, I would say finding a buddy is a really good thing to do for your own sake and to make you look stronger as well. So
no, I really like that. And then would you do that again? Would you do another event elsewhere again? Or
yeah, it's funny because I would certainly go back to Orkney because it was good fun. But obviously with Blair Athol coming up round the corner, I'm now thinking to myself, now, would I do it again so soon? Could I do it again?
Are you doing it again?
I have not committed to doing it again. But never say never.
Might see you in the start line. Might see you at start line, Blair Athol.
You and I might be the buddies that run together,
Absolutely. That'd be great.
It's not impossible. I would like to do it, not necessarily to prove something, because I think there's always a danger that you go and do it, and whatever happens, you've heard about Dave Moore talking about things suddenly go wrong, one bad lap and you're out. And so if you don't achieve the same total, are you disappointed? Do you have to keep going up in order to prove something or in order to achieve?
Yeah.
So there is a big risk of actually not achieving. Or what if I did 27 laps but actually came 30th overall? It doesn't then feel as good. So should I just be happy with what I did?
I think the big thing as well, it's just such a different course,
Yeah.
Different course, different runners.
Can't have expectations. But at the same time, you're coming into it now with different experience, with the knowledge of what it takes to keep going and to get round, a little bit of the benefit of having done it. So yeah, I certainly would like the concept again. But you know what it's like, anyone running for 24 hours, it takes it out of you and it gets hard.
Yeah.
And although it's a nice place to be sometimes, it's also a tough place to be. And you need recovery after that. You need recovery time off the limb. You need to recover and get your sleep pattern back because you've lost a lot of sleep. So it's a commitment if you're going to take something like that on. It's more than just, pop off on a Friday, back to work again Monday.
Yeah.
I had time in Orkney, I could have kept running 24 hours because the ferry wasn't until the next day. So you had lots of scope to
run straight to the ferry.
Yeah.
No, Dave, fantastic stuff. Anything I should be thinking about, or anything that you went into having not really thought about, then once you've left the event, you thought, I should have maybe prepared this, did that differently, or is there anything you'd recommend to a first timer to look into or look around?
Something like this. I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything I would have done differently, to be honest. I'd say that it's always important to look after your feet. So you've got to be keeping check. You've got to be wearing the right shoes, and you've got to go into it with the mindset that if you can keep those shoes on for the duration, then you'll be doing well. So get your feet however you want to prep them, whether you tape up your toes. I use Vaseline on my toes. And then the Injinji socks, and that keeps my feet generally okay. So my feet were absolutely fine. Might be a different story again if it was wet, but look after your feet. If you're feeling something on one lap, make sure you take the time to protect them, especially in an event like this where you have that time. You can sit down, get your feet sorted, and get back on it again.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a great bit of advice, and especially the Injinji socks is definitely one of the things that's on the list to trial out, as well as get a pair and get going with them. No, it's super exciting to hear your experience, and you know what, it's quite nice just watching you relay it, because you can obviously see the memories coming back to you, you're smiling through the memories. It's quite nice to see that, because a lot of people, when they come after a race like that, they're like, oh God, it was tough, but it's just beaming from your face, from ear to ear. It's great to see, and I'm looking forward to that.
It draws so much from the people. So use the other people for your energy. Enjoy the conversations with them. Enjoy the time that you're spending on the track. And it's different from any other race as well, because in a normal event, wherever you happen to be in the field, you've got the people who are slightly quicker than you that you see, the people who are slightly behind you, but otherwise everybody else is just off in the distance, forward or backwards. But with this, everybody regroups, everybody has a chance to go off again at the same time, and so you do get to see the whole crowd. The faster ones, the slower ones, and on some laps they'll be faster and they'll be slower. So there's lots of opportunity to see lots of people. So use them, find the people that you want to chat to.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can say of the usual conversation in Orkney. Oh, have you been to Orkney before? How long have you been here? What race have you done before? Oh, I think I've run with you before. But there'll be lots of people there that you'll have something in common with. I mean, you'll have something in common with every single one of them because they're all there running. Yeah. So no stranger in that respect. But there'll be people you recognise who have done events that you've been at, and then we'll recognise you as well. And of course, you're James from the podcasts. So,
so Dave, on that note, this might cut out. Can I just get you to log into the same link I sent you, and then we can start the recording just from where we pick up again? Because I've got the free account, so it tends to just cut out halfway through. And we just finish off after that. So it's still recording just now, but I'll probably just cut out. It just says less than a minute.
How about that?
Yeah. So you're saying about that everyone there will have something in common, and look around about you to see who's there. And the one thing we'll have in common is we're taking on that mammoth task itself. So yeah, no, it's super exciting. And you mentioned about looking after feet. What shoes did you wear? I'm always interested in the shoes that people wear and the footwear that people wear. What kind of shoes did you wear?
Yeah, I had Nike Wild Horses, which is it's a trail shoe, but you don't see many of them. I got them from Run For It earlier in the year, and they've been pretty good. They don't have much of a lug on them, so they're okay on mixed terrain because because we were on the stubble of the fields, we were on gravel track, we were on grass, we were on a farm road, and then we were on tarmac. So we really mixed it up on the route that we were on. So actually, they were good on that condition because they've got the cushioning of a road shoe, but a little bit of a grip on them.
Do they have much cushioning in the wild horses?
Yeah, they're okay actually.
Yeah.
They're all right. Fine for that. And I thought it was a pretty good choice of shoe for that in the end. I wouldn't have wanted to be on anything, the Saucony Peregrines or the Hoka Speedcoats are my other trail shoes of choice, but it's too much grip on them for this.
Yeah.
But I do like being a trail shoe of sorts when you're running on stubble and on other kind of rough terrain. So that worked out quite well actually.
Oh, brilliant. And we can't possibly leave without saying that we noticed that the next Brewdog Run is up for people to sign up for, and it's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, 1st of October?
Saturday the 1st of October. So
on Entry Central, is that correct, Dave?
Central, it will be going or will have gone live on Wednesday the 13th of July, 8 p.m.
Tomorrow.
So that's tomorrow as from date of recording, yes. So it's all primed, ready to go. I know it's a busy weekend for running because it's the same weekend as Loch Ness Marathon and London Marathon as well. So there will be people that will be away doing those events. But it's hard. There's been so many events in the calendar, cheeky old London moving to this time of year as well.
I know. But the one thing about the Brewdog is, and if we go right back to the top of our session today, is that it's the atmosphere. Every time I've run it, it's been fantastic. It's been social. It's been enjoyable for different reasons, as in you meet people like-minded. And it goes back to nothing you said, is that everyone's got something in common, that they're running the Brewdog. They're running the Brewdog event, and you meet so many lovely, lovely people, and it's an event that I can't recommend highly enough. So if you are listening and you've always wanted to do it, there's different options. Now, again, please correct me if I say out of town here, but you can run from town out, which is roughly about the 20 miles, or you can get the train to Dice and run out, which is roughly about 14 miles, would it be, Dave, from Dice?
Dice, yeah. So it's slightly over half marathon. But again, because of the nature of it, it's not a race. So if people have done a half before, they'll manage it, no bother, because it's not a race. It's, you break it down into sort of 3 10K events almost, with a stop in between, and often when you get to the end of your first 10K, everybody's waiting around at the checkpoint, and then you move on to the next one. So it's
not one of these things that you worry about being first or last, because there is no first or last. There's pretty much a party that goes from the middle of town through Dice to Udney and then finishes at the Overtap itself. And yeah, fantastic event as well. But also the goodie bag is probably one of the best goodie bags I've ever had, and it always is, never fails to amaze me. How much goodie stuff you get in the old bag. And the last thing I was going to say as well, Dave, you're very much involved in the Feel Like Joggers, which is another running group in Aberdeen, where they have taken over Aberdeen by storm. The Purple Wave. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Especially Balmoral. Balmoral's our big event, so you see us out with the we have more and more people in the purple t-shirts every year, so we always have a great crowd at some of these events. And it's nice because we're aiming ourselves at the beginner runners, so we're getting newcomer runners that come in through the Catch to 5K program that then stay with us and stick running with us. So we have different groups going out, 11 different groups a week, doing different paces, different distances, as well as a Catch to 5K program that's going to start again in August, middle of August.
I know we've spoke about ultras and 100 miles, but I think that everyone can run, and I think that it's meeting the expectations and meeting like a safe environment to run. And I feel that everyone I've spoken to about the Fit Like Joggers is pretty much a safe environment for starting running and meeting like-minded people, and maybe not as competitive at the start, but there's definitely that competitiveness as you go up through the groups if you want to do the competitive side of things. But also when you have that feeding into the Brewdog Run, which is just fantastic as well. It sets us up for having a through from couch to 5K to couch to ultra kind of setup there. So it's really quite a nice thing to have in Aberdeen. So if you are listening to this and you are kind of reasonably new to running, or you're wanting to pick up running again, then definitely have a look at the Fit Like Joggers with the Couch to 5K. And like Dave said, that 11 groups that go out. So it's absolutely fantastic of all ages and abilities, which is fantastic. And exercise is so key for us, and especially after the lockdown period we've had, and it's such an important thing to be part of. So thank you very much for your work with that, David, but also thank you very much for coming on this evening and sharing some experiences. Not maybe the tactic, the secret tactic. Keep that one to yourself. Keep that one definitely to yourself. And maybe after a few beers in the next Brewdog, you might spill the beans. But yeah, thanks very much for your sharing your experience with us. And it was such a pleasure watching you smile to reminisce on the memories you had there.
Well, really good to speak to you, and good luck to you and to everybody else taking part in the last one standing as well. It's go and enjoy it, go and make the most of the day, keep smiling, keep strong until you can't keep any stronger.
What was the mantra I was saying? Is that there's no reason to stop. There's no reason. I'm going to get a tattooed on myself.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Dave. What I'll do is I'll just pause and then we can catch up off air if that's okay.
Grand.